A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Chapter 1. Recall to Life. The Dover mail was struggling up Shooter's Hill one November night in 1775. The road was dark and muddy, and the passengers were all walking beside the coach to make the work of the horses easier. There were 3 passengers, all wearing heavy coats and boots. They trudged wearily up the hill through the heavy mist, not speaking to each other. There was a great fear of highwaymen in those days, and the guard and driver of the Dover mail were anxious. They watched the passengers suspiciously. Just as the coach reached the top of the hill, the driver heard a noise in the darkness ahead. He listened intently for a moment. Then he was sure. There was a horse approaching at a gallop. The guard had heard the noise as well, and he drew out his blunderbuss. The passengers had also heard the horse, and they stood in silence near the coach. The sound of the horse was very clear, and the guard called out loudly,
"Stop! Stop, or I'll fire!"
The rider stopped his horse very quickly. The passengers peered uneasily through the mist, but they could not see the rider or his horse.
"Is that the Dover mail?"
The man on the horse called out. The guard aimed his weapon carefully.
"Why do you want to know?"
He replied loudly.
"I want a passenger,"
the voice replied.
"I'm looking for Mr. Jarvis Lorry."
One of the passengers stepped forward when he heard his name and spoke quickly to the guard. The guard looked suspiciously at Mr. Lorry for a moment. Then he called out to the rider again.
"Come closer to the coach,"
he ordered.
"but come very slowly. If you move quickly, I'll fire."
The man on the horse moved out of the darkness and approached the coach.
"It's all right, guard,"
said Mr. Lorry quietly.
"I work for Tellson's Bank in London, and this man is one of our messengers."
The messenger passed a piece of paper to Mr. Lorry, who opened it hurriedly and read the message in the light of the coach lamp.
"Wait at Dover for Mademoiselle."
Mr. Lorry turned to the man on the horse.
"Jerry,"
he ordered,
"take this answer back. Recalled to life. They'll know what you mean. That's all. You can go now."
Mr. Lorry stepped into the coach and the driver flicked his whip at the horses. The coach moved slowly forward towards Dover.
Recalled to life. That's the strangest message I've ever heard.
The man called Jerry said to himself. He paused for a moment or two, watching the coach disappear in the darkness and mist. Then he shrugged his shoulders and began the long ride back to London. By morning, the mail had arrived in Dover, stopping outside a hotel. 2 of the passengers had got out previously at their destinations. Mr. Lorry, the remaining passenger, climbed stiffly down to the ground. He walked into the hotel and ordered breakfast. He was cold and hungry, and he had not slept much during the long journey from London. He had been thinking a lot about the past, and his memories were painful ones. He sat by the fire and made himself comfortable. Mr. Lorry ate his breakfast hungrily and then went outside for a walk. The coast of France could just be seen from the seafront at Dover. Mr. Lorry peered anxiously towards it, and his face grew serious. He plunged into thought once more. That afternoon, Mr. Lorry settled himself in the hotel. He ordered an early dinner and had just finished eating when he heard the sound of a carriage outside.
That'll be Mademoiselle.
He said to himself nervously. A few minutes later, the waiter came in to tell him that Miss Manette had arrived from London and that she wanted to see the gentleman from Tellson's Bank. Mr. Lorry sighed deeply. He stood up and followed the waiter to Miss Manette's room in the hotel. He seemed a little afraid of meeting the young lady. When he entered the room, he saw a young girl of about 17 standing near a table. The girl was slender, and she had golden hair. Mr. Lorry stared at her for a moment. He remembered an occasion many years before when he had carried a small child in his arms on the boat from France. Miss Manette smiled at him.
"Please sit down, sir,"
she said politely. Mr. Lorry sat down and waited for her to speak again.
"I had a message from Tellson's Bank yesterday,"
Miss Manette went on.
"There is apparently some very surprising news about my father's property, which the bank said you would tell me about. The bank also told me I would have to travel to Paris to see about it."
Mr. Lorry nodded his head. For a moment there was silence, and then he coughed awkwardly.
Ahem. I am a man of business, Miss Manette. What I have to tell you is a matter of business. I want to tell you the story of one of our customers.
Mr. Lorry coughed again, and then went on.
This particular customer was a French gentleman, a doctor, as it happens.
"Did he live in Beauvais?"
Miss Manette asked eagerly.
Yes, he did. He lived in Beauvais, just like your father. I knew him, you see. I lived in Paris in those days, and I worked in the Paris branch of Tellson's.
"When did all this happen?"
Miss Manette asked quickly.
About 20 years ago.
Mr. Lorry replied.
The gentleman married an English lady, and Tellson's Bank managed their financial affairs. It was a business relationship, you see. Just a business relationship, you understand.
"This is my father's story,"
cried Miss Manette excitedly. She looked at Mr. Lorry keenly, as if trying to remember a face from the past.
"Was it you who brought me to England after my parents died? Was it you, sir?"
Mr. Lorry bowed to her politely.
It was me,
he admitted.
It was an affair of business, you see. Just business, that's all. As you have guessed, I am telling you the story of your father. You know that your father died, Miss Manette.
He coughed awkwardly again, as if he did not know how to go on with his story.
But the man in my story did not die.
Miss Manette went very pale. She began to tremble violently.
Please be calm, my dear,
the banker said softly. He spoke gently now, and he studied the young girl's face as he continued with his story.
What if Monsieur Manette had not died? What if he had been taken away to a dreadful place? What if he had had a powerful enemy who put him in prison? What if his friends did not know what had happened to him?
Although Miss Manette was even paler now, she was listening to every word that the banker was saying.
"Go on, sir,"
she said.
"Tell me everything, but tell me quickly."
Your father has been found, my dear. He is alive. He's been taken to the house of his old servant in Paris. That's why you and I are going to Paris.
Miss Manette began to tremble even more than before.
"It won't be my father,"
she cried in distress.
"It will be his ghost. It's my father's ghost you're taking me to see, Mr. Lorry. It's his ghost."
Mr. Lorry tried to calm the young girl.
Nonsense, my dear,
he said softly.
You're going to see your own father. The poor gentleman has suffered very badly, but you will bring him back to life.
Then he raised a hand in warning.
We don't know what happened in the past,
He told her.
and we mustn't ask. France is a dangerous country, and our business is a secret one. I am carrying no papers with me at all. Our mission is a simple one, Miss Manette. Recalled to life describes it perfectly.
Miss Manette looked at Mr. Lorry. Her eyes were wide open and she was very pale. She did not say a word. She sat in perfect silence for a few minutes, and Mr. Lorry realized that she was in some kind of a faint. He shouted loudly for help.
Ho there! Help! Ho there!
A large red-haired woman rushed into the room after Mr. Lorry's call for help. She ran over to Miss Manette and seized her hand. Then she began to shout angrily at the hotel servants who had come into the room with her.
"Why don't you do something?"
She yelled.
"Go and get some smelling salts and some cold water. Don't just sit there looking at the poor girl."
The servants ran out of the room to fetch the things that were needed. The angry, red-haired woman bent tenderly over Miss Manette, stroking her face and whispering softly to her. Then she turned to Mr. Lorry in fury.
"What have you done to her?"
She asked angrily.
"Couldn't you give her your news without frightening her to death?"
Mr. Lorry watched as the woman continued stroking Miss Manette's face and talking softly to her. After a few minutes, the girl recovered consciousness.
I hope she will be all right now.
Mr. Lorry said quietly.
"No thanks to you,"
the woman said fiercely. Chapter 2. Paris. The streets in the Saint-Antoine district of Paris were dirty and mean. The people who lived there were poor, and most of them were thin and ill-fed. A man was unloading a large barrel of wine from a cart in the street when there was an accident. The barrel slipped out of the cart and broke in the street. And a dark river of wine ran along the ground. Stopping what they were doing, everyone ran to the spot where the accident had taken place. Men, women and children began scooping up the dirty wine and drinking it from their hands. There was laughter from the crowd as they scooped up the wine, and there were smiles on the starved faces of the people. Soon, everyone's mouth and hands were stained red with the wine. One man dipped his finger in the wine and scrawled a dismal word on the wall. Blood. Nearby, there was a small wine shop, and the owner was watching the scene in the street. He was a man of about 30. He frowned when he saw the joker write the word blood on the wall. The wine shop keeper's wife, Madame Defarge, was also watching the scene in the street. She, too, frowned, but she said nothing. She had some knitting in her hands, and her fingers worked continuously with the needles. Monsieur Defarge turned back into the shop after a few minutes. He was surprised that 2 customers had entered the shop unseen by him. One of them was a middle-aged gentleman, and the other was a young girl. They were not the kind of people who would usually enter a wine shop in the Saint-Antoine district. The gentleman said something quietly to Defarge. The wine shop keeper was surprised for a moment, and then he signalled to the 2 customers to follow him out of the shop. Mr. Lorry and Miss Manette rose quickly from the table and followed Defarge. He led them through a little courtyard into another house. All 3 of them climbed the narrow staircase up to the top of the house. Defarge stopped outside a door and listened intently. He took a key out of his pocket.
He's locked in?
Exclaimed Mr. Lorry in surprise.
Why do you keep him locked in?
He has been a prisoner for many years.
Monsieur Defarge replied grimly.
and he would be frightened of freedom. That's why I always turn the key in the door when I go in.
Although Lucy Manette had not managed to hear any of the whispered conversation between the two men, she looked worried and frightened. Defarge pushed the door open softly, and they all entered the tiny, ill-lit room. There was an old man sitting with his back to the door. He was very busy, making shoes. Defarge made a slight noise, and the old man turned to face him. He had long, white hair, and an untidy beard, and he was very thin. The old man saw Miss Manette and Mr. Lorry, but he showed no interest in them.
"Show the gentleman the shoes you are making,"
Defarge commanded. Mr. Lorry stepped forward and leaned over the old man's work. Then he spoke quietly to him.
Dr. Manette. Don't you remember him?
He pointed at Defarge.
Don't you remember your servant from long ago? Take a good look at him.
The old man was startled and dropped the shoe he was holding in his hand. He frowned for a moment, and it seemed as if he was struggling to remember something from the past. The effort was too great for him, however, and after a few seconds his face went blank. He reached down, picked up the shoe that had fallen, and resumed his work.
"Do you recognize him, sir?"
Defarge asked the Englishman.
It's him.
Mr. Lorry replied.
He's greatly changed. But it is him.
Miss Manette moved quietly to the old man's side and stood beside him. She was still very pale, but there was an expression of great tenderness on her face now. The old man raised his eyes and looked at her. He seemed afraid of her.
"What does this mean?"
he asked fearfully.
"Who are you?"
He took hold of her long golden hair and stroked it with his fingers. Then he began muttering to himself.
"It's the same, but it's impossible. So much time has gone by. It's impossible."
He peered anxiously into her face.
"You can't be,"
he said softly.
"You look like her, and your hair is the same. But it's impossible. She would be old now, like me."
Miss Manette put her arm around the old man and spoke softly to him.
"I am your daughter,"
she told him gently.
"and I have come to take you home. We are going to England."
Chapter 3. The Old Bailey. 5 years passed. Dr. Manette and his daughter Lucy settled in a small house in London with Lucy's old nurse, Miss Pross. The doctor returned to health and began to see patients once more. Sometimes, however, memories of his suffering came back to him, and for a couple of days or more he would take up his shoemaking again. It was impossible to talk to him, and he lost all idea of where he was. He imagined himself to be back in prison, and he withdrew completely into silence and suffering. Mr. Lorry visited them frequently when he had time off from his duties at Tellson's Bank, where Jerry Cruncher was still working as a messenger. One day, the clerk told Jerry to go straight away to the Old Bailey to deliver a message to Mr. Lorry.
"The Old Bailey, sir?"
Repeated Jerry.
"What's going on there? And what's Mr. Lorry got to do with the Old Bailey, I wonder?"
Mr. Lorry is giving evidence in a trial, that's all.
The clerk told him. Jerry hurried to the Old Bailey as quickly as he could and entered the grim old building. He pushed through the crowd of lawyers and spectators who had come to watch the trial that was taking place.
What's the trial about?
he asked one of the officials.
I suppose it's a forgery case.
It's not forgery.
The official told him.
It's more serious than that. It's treason.
That's quartering.
Jerry said quietly.
Barbarous.
It's the law.
The official said sternly. Jerry made his way into the court and looked around for Mr. Lorry. He saw him sitting next to an elderly gentleman and a young girl. They were talking seriously together, and the young girl seemed worried and nervous. She kept looking towards the dock where the prisoner was standing. The prisoner was a well-dressed young man. He stood calmly, waiting for the trial to begin. The prosecuting counsel rose to his feet and described the charges against the prisoner. The prisoner, he explained, was called Charles Darnay. He had travelled many times between England and France, and the prosecutor said that the purpose of his journeys was to carry information that was dangerous to England. The prosecutor said that he would now bring forward his witnesses, who would prove that Charles Darnay was an enemy to England and that he deserved severe punishment. His first witness was a man called John Barsad. This witness said he had once been a friend of the prisoner's, but that he had broken off the friendship when he became sure that Charles Darnay was a spy for France. The witness spoke confidently, and the prosecuting counsel was obviously pleased with the way he gave his evidence. Next, it was the defence counsel's turn to ask John Barsad some questions. Had he ever been a spy himself? No. What was the source of his income? His property. Where was this property? He didn't remember. Had he ever been in prison? Never. Had he ever been in a debtor's prison? Yes. How many times? 2 or 3. Not 5 or 6? Perhaps. Had he ever been a gambler? No more than other gentlemen. Had he ever borrowed money from the prisoner? Yes. Had he paid the money back? No. John Barsad left the witness stand a little awkwardly after the defence counsel had finished with him. The prosecuting counsel called another witness, Mr. Jarvis Lorry. He asked Mr. Lorry to remember a night 5 years ago when he had been a passenger on the Dover Mail.
How many other passengers were there on the mail?
2.
Was the prisoner one of them?
I don't know. They were both wrapped up against the cold. I could not see their faces.
Have you ever seen the prisoner anywhere?
Yes. He was on the boat when I returned from France a few days later.
Were you travelling alone, Mr. Lorry?
No. I was travelling with Dr. Manette and his daughter, Lucy.
The prosecution counsel now called Lucy Manette to the stand. She confirmed that she had talked to the prisoner. Charles Darnay had noticed that her father was ill and had helped her to make the old man comfortable for the crossing. He had been polite and kind to both herself and her father. She hoped that her evidence would not get him into trouble. The prosecution counsel now called a final witness to prove that Charles Darnay had got out of the Dover Mail in the middle of the night and had then walked some 12 miles through the darkness to a garrison town where he had waited for an accomplice. The prisoner's 2 defence counsels listened to this witness very carefully. The junior counsel, who had not played a very active part throughout the trial, yawned and stretched in his chair, as if the whole trial was a bore and a waste of time. Then he wrote a hurried note and passed it along to his colleague. His colleague read the note with surprise, then rose to his feet to ask the witness some questions.
Are you quite sure that the man you saw in the garrison town was the prisoner Charles Darnay?
Quite sure.
Have you ever seen anyone else who looked like the prisoner?
No.
Look at my young colleague for a moment.
The defence counsel told the witness.
Now look at the prisoner again. Do they not look like each other?
The witness looked at the young barrister. Then he looked again at the prisoner. It was true. The two men were similar.
Can you still say that the man you saw in the garrison town was the prisoner?
Asked the defence counsel. The witness could not swear it. It was possible he had made a mistake. All the evidence had now been heard, and the jury retired to consider their verdict on the prisoner. Everyone stood up and began to walk about the court, talking to friends and colleagues. The young defence counsel left his colleague for a moment and approached Mr. Lorry.
Is Miss Manette all right?
He asked eagerly, having seen her about to faint.
She is upset, but she'll be all right.
Mr. Lorry told him.
You have given the prisoner a good defence, Mr. Carton,
he said politely. Sidney Carton smiled grimly. Then he walked up to the prisoner.
Miss Manette will be all right,
he said coldly.
I'm deeply sorry to have been the cause of her suffering,
Charles Darnay said. Time moved slowly while the jury was considering the fate of the prisoner. Jerry was waiting outside the court building when Mr. Lorry ran excitedly up to him, waving a piece of paper.
Take this to the bank straight away,
he ordered. Jerry looked at the piece of paper. There was one word written on it. Acquitted.
If he had written recalled to life, I would have understood him this time,
Jerry said to himself as he hurried towards Tellson's bank. Chapter 5. A Marriage and a Confession. More time passed, and Mr. Charles Darnay established himself in England as a teacher of French. He often visited Dr. Manette and Lucy, and gradually he fell in love. Mr. Lorry was a visitor to the house as well, going there on Sundays after his week's work at Tellson's bank. The young lawyer, Sidney Carton, was another visitor at Dr. Manette's house. He was a strange young man, often bitter and sharp in his conversation. He drank too much, and there was an air of sadness about him. He did not like Charles Darnay, and was frequently cold in his behaviour to the Frenchman whose life he had so brilliantly saved at the Old Bailey. Charles Darnay finally managed to approach Dr. Manette to tell him of his love for Lucy. The old man did not want to lose his daughter, but he liked Darnay and respected him.
If my daughter loves you,
he told the young man,
I shall be happy to see you married to her.
There's one other thing,
Darnay added.
You know that my name is not really Darnay. I'd rather you knew who I really am.
No,
cried Dr. Manette suddenly. For a moment he looked quite afraid.
I don't wish to hear it now, my friend. But you can tell me,
he went on
the morning of the day you marry Lucy.
A few days later, Sidney Carton came to the house. He looked tired and ill, and appeared to be ashamed of himself.
Are you all right?
Lucy asked him.
No, Miss Manette,
he replied sadly.
I lead a bad life, and I am never all right. But what can be done?
You could change your way of living, perhaps,
Lucy suggested with a smile. She was surprised to see tears coming to his eyes.
It's too late for that,
he told her.
I shall go on living the way I do, and I shall sink lower and lower. I can't help it.
He paused and looked embarrassed.
Please forgive me for talking like this to you,
he said humbly.
I shall never do it again, but I have something particular that I want to say to you.
Again he paused and looked at her in great distress.
I have loved you from the first,
he said,
and the thought of you has made me try to change my life. But it's useless. It's too late to change.
It's never too late to change,
Lucy suggested softly.
I shall go on living the way I do,
He said.
but I shall always love you. I will sink lower and lower in life, but my heart will always be turned to you. And if there is ever anything I can do for you, or for the people that you love, I would do it, no matter the cost.
One evening, Dr. Manette and his daughter were sitting together in the garden. Lucy was to be married the following day.
You won't feel lonely when I'm married, will you, Father?
Lucy asked anxiously.
I've already told you
Her father replied calmly.
that your marriage to Charles gives me great pleasure. He's a fine young man, my dear, and I'm happy for both of you.
The old man was very thoughtful as he went up to his room that night. He had pretended to be happy, but his mind was troubled by his daughter's marriage. He was afraid of loneliness. The next morning, Charles Darnay came to the house. He had not forgotten his promise to Dr. Manette and had come to tell the old man his real name. He and the doctor went into the study together, where they remained for a few minutes. When they came out, the doctor looked pale and he was trembling. He made a great effort, however, and managed to look cheerful and happy during the wedding ceremony. Lucy and her husband left London on their honeymoon. Dr. Manette, Miss Pross, and Mr. Lorry said goodbye to them. The doctor was very quiet and thoughtful for the rest of the day, and Mr. Lorry was worried about him.
I must go to Tellson's bank,
Mr. Lorry told Miss Pross.
but I'll come back as soon as I've finished there.
It was evening before Mr. Lorry returned to the house. He entered the doctor's room and found the old man standing at a table with his back to the door. He was making shoes, just as he had been doing when Mr. Lorry found him in Paris. Mr. Lorry spoke quietly to the doctor, but he received no reply. The doctor did not recognize him. Miss Pross and Mr. Lorry watched the doctor carefully over the next few days. They did not want to ruin Lucy's honeymoon by telling her that her father was ill. They hoped he would recover before the young couple came home. The days passed slowly, and Dr. Manette spent them making shoes. On the 10th day, however, there was a change in the doctor's condition. He came downstairs in the morning in the usual way, and he talked normally to Miss Pross and Mr. Lorry. He had recovered completely, but he had no memory of the days he had spent making shoes. Chapter 6. The Revolution in France. Another 6 years went by, and Lucy and Charles Darnay were happy together. They now had a young daughter, also called Lucy. Dr. Manette had never fallen into his illness again, and he too was cheerful and contented. Mr. Lorry continued his Sunday visits to the household and was regarded as one of the family. Sidney Carton visited the family as well, but only came 5 or 6 times a year. He took care never to drink wine on the days when he came to the house. One night, in July 1789, Mr. Lorry came to the house after he had finished work at Tellson's bank. He seemed tired.
It's been a busy day,
he said.
Our customers in France are uneasy. Our Paris office has been full of customers, and all of them have been leaving their money and valuables for us to look after. They all want their property sent to England as soon as possible.
The situation in France is serious,
commented Charles Darnay.
The news from there is not good.
There was much excitement in the Saint-Antoine district of Paris that day. Many people could be seen in the streets. Most of them were carrying weapons. Defarge was issuing orders to the men who stood near him. His face was determined and solemn.
Keep near me, Jacques 3.
He told one of the men. Then he turned to the crowd and roared,
To the Bastille!
There was a huge cheer from the people in the street. Swords were waved and muskets loaded. There was soon a sea of people surrounding the Bastille prison and clamouring for entry. A few soldiers leaned down from the Bastille walls to see what was happening. Orders were shouted and the crowd attacked the Bastille. There was fire and smoke everywhere, and in the centre stood Defarge, always directing his men to the enemy's weakest places.
Forward!
He cried. Madame Defarge was also there, commanding the women of Paris who took part in the battle. We can kill as well, she cried as she led the women forward. The defenders of the Bastille were soon swept away, and the governor of the prison was set upon and killed by the angry crowd. Defarge led his men into the building, and they liberated the prisoners. Then he made his way to the cell that had once been Dr. Manette's. He peered at the walls and the few pieces of furniture. He was looking for something.
Look, Jacques!
He cried excitedly.
Look, there on the wall!
He pointed at some initials. A.M.
Alexandra Manette,
he said.
This was the doctor's cell, all right.
He began to search the old fireplace, dislodging a cloud of dust as he did so. Something fell into the fireplace, and Defarge bent quickly to pick it up.
There's nothing here, Jacques,
he said.
We may as well go.
Mr. Lorry was constantly busy at Tellson's bank because of the dramatic events in France. There was a continuous stream of customers from France in the bank's premises, and people left messages for friends and family members there. One day, Charles Darnay happened to visit Mr. Lorry in his office. Mr. Lorry was preparing to travel to France on business. Darnay tried to persuade him not to go, pointing out the dangers of such a trip while the country was undergoing a revolution.
Don't try to dissuade me,
the banker said with a smile.
I've worked for Tellson's all my life, and I feel a loyalty to the bank and to our customers. I must go.
Just then, one of the bank clerks brought in a letter and handed it to Mr. Lorry.
This has come for the Marquis and Evremond, sir.
The clerk explained.
But no one knows where the Marquis is, or even if he's in England at all.
Charles Darnay, who had inherited the title from his uncle, had kept the truth of his identity a secret from everybody except Dr. Manette. He did not want to reveal it to Mr. Lorry.
As it happens,
he told Mr. Lorry,
I know the Marquis. I'll deliver the letter for you if you like.
Mr. Lorry was happy to pass the letter to him. Later that day, Darnay opened the letter from France. He read it with trembling hands.
Dear Marquis, I have always been a faithful servant to the Evremond family, and now I have been arrested and thrown into prison in Paris. They tell me I am an enemy of the people and that I must die. My crime is that I followed your orders after your uncle died. I beg you to come to France and help your old servant, Gabelle.
Darnay had made his decision before he finished reading this appeal for help. He knew that he had to go to France to do what he could for Gabelle. He sighed deeply. He did not want to leave Lucy and Dr. Manette, but he knew that he had to go. He wrote a letter to Lucy explaining why he had to travel to Paris, and then he left for France.